We have great drone shot overhead here. You've got Y Quad Cities out in front in lane 3, followed by Canamex just off the left side of your screen in lane 4, and Oak Neck close behind, looking to challenge the Canamex crew for that second qualifying spot. But I think it's fair to say that this Y Quad Cities, they're headed to the finals tomorrow.
Yeah, they're looking real strong as they're taking their strokes there, and you might be asking yourself, how did these crews get here? And they got here from a time trial. So all 18 of these boats in these semifinals were the top 18 in time trials yesterday. So they had to qualify to even get to this race to begin with. Looks like we crossed into the red buoys, marking the last 250 meters of the race. It's Y Quad Cities with a very comfortable lead right now. You can see lane 4 just peeking into the very edge of the frame over there with Canamex B, but it is absolutely Y Quad Cities dominating the race right now and securing their spot in grand finals tomorrow.
Y Quad Cities is boat in your frame right now. They posted the fastest time in the time trial out of a total of 41 boats. So not only were they dominant today, as you can see here, as they cruised their way into the final, they really asserted themselves while they're independent, not really having anyone around them. So these 4 athletes here are not only physically tough, but mentally tough as well. Just very centered in what they're looking to accomplish and not necessarily worrying a lot about what's going on around them.
Yeah, with that first place finish in the time trial and this very convincing performance here, they look to be the boat to beat in grand finals.
And here they come. There's Y Quad Cities, followed by Canamex B, and Oak Neck here in lane 4. Excuse me, in lane 2. Y Quad Cities and Canamex B, your 2 qualifiers out of semifinal number 1 of the women's U19 quad, earning their place in tomorrow's final.
You can see Vesper crossing the line there for 4th, and we'll see which of Y Quad Cities or Conshohocken finishes out 5th. That'll be Conshohocken coming across the line there in lane 1 in 5th, which will place Y Quad Cities B in 6th.
Now, as we've mentioned, these time trials, only the top 18 went to semis, and these 3 semis are competing for only 1 final, so 2 spots to qualify out of these 3 semis for a chance to win a national championship. There is no petite final, there is no B or C level final. It's the A final, the grand final, and that's it. Here we go with the women's U19 quad semifinal number 2. In lane 1, we have Maritime B. In lane 2, we have GMS. In lane 3, Row West. Lane 4, Maritime A. Lane 5, OKC. And lane 6, Orion. So we have 2 boats from Maritime, but the favored one in this event is going to be Row West Racing Camp, that finished 2nd in the time trial just behind Y Quad Cities, who we just saw won the first semifinal.
Yeah, and it looks like they pushed themselves out to an early lead right now. Hard to tell who's got 2nd right now from the camera on top of the Camden County Boathouse, but right now it looks like Row West has a slight edge, but they may be getting a challenge from the crew from Maritime. Or not Maritime, rather. Well, maybe it's Maritime out front. We'll see when they come in front of us here. About 800 meters into the race, we got the crews approaching now, so we'll sort out the field as we get up here. That looks like bow card 4, Maritime, with a little bit of a lead over Row West.
the overhead drone view here. You can see there's two crews that have really moved out and asserted themselves as the leaders of the pack, and that will be Row West and Maritime, lanes 3 and 4, here in the second semifinal of the women's U19 quad.
Yeah, they've really run away with the race from the rest of the field right now. There's at least 3 boat links open between them and the rest of the field. The next closest boat is lane 2 GMS, and they've got a little bit of overlap, barely overlapped with lane 5 Oklahoma City, but far and away it's those first 2 boats up there that have really opened up a sizable lead on the rest of the field.
These 2 boats just hanging together, going stroke for stroke. Not too big of a change in the stroke rate, or I should say too big of a difference in the stroke rate between these 2, that crossing the 1,000-meter mark right there.
Yeah, we'll see in the second half of the race if somebody's interested in really asserting themselves and going for that first place position. First place will put them on an inside lane for tomorrow's grand final. Little bit of an advantage there in being able to see the rest of the crews as you come off the start line. It's harder to see the rest of the field from the outside lanes, but it's not impossible to win, so we'll see if one of them tries to get that competitive advantage.
Both crews just really flowing nicely together as a unit. Coming out of the back end, you can see that the far crew in the yellow boat, that would be Maritime, started to drive up the rate a little bit, whereas Row West just definitely took a big move to really make the most out of that ratio, giving themselves more run on it, giving the bodies more time to set up as they come into the front end.
Yeah, I really like the acceleration that they've got on the oar handles too. You see them lock on at the catch, and it's a constant acceleration at that back end. Really solid release there, which is giving them a little bit more run per stroke over that boat in lane 4.
All right, that was a really good strategic move. It just kind of flattened things out, kind of mentally checked them back in as they come into the third 500 here, or starting to enter the last 500, I should say. But here are your 2 crews that are favored to move on to tomorrow's final. You've got Row West here and Maritime next one.
If you've just tuned into the broadcast, maybe you just tuned in to watch the quads races this afternoon, these rowers are making it look very easy. It looks very relaxed, very calm and controlled, but it is anything but. That is just some really good rowing. Good rowing always looks easy, looks smooth, and looks efficient, but you can rest assured those rowers are working very hard right now to maintain their first place and second place positions.
They're currently at about 500.
Row West is coached by Melanie Salter, Tricia Blocker, and Monica Hilku, 3 very established coaches within the coaching community, bringing a lot of experience, a lot of both competitive experience and training as well to the summer group that they work with. Row West, as of right now, is just a summer program that attracts top programs out of the country, and it's just an all-female program. So the fact that they're here and really showcasing their talent, huge kudos to those coaches for getting these athletes prepared.
And it looks like we've crossed into the last 250 meters, those red buoys, last 1/8 of the race course. Looks like Row West has gone ahead and built into a sprint to really assert themselves and say, we are the fastest crew in the semifinal. Looks like Maritime's trying to maybe keep up with them, test themselves out for tomorrow and really get a good feel for it. But it's going to be Row West across the line first.
Coming right in front of us now, we have the third semifinal of the U19 women's quad. This is where we're going to find the last 2 qualifiers out in front there. We've got Row America Rye in lane 3, closely followed by that's US Rowing Canamex in lane 3, followed by Cambridge in lane 4.
Got CRI in lane 2. They are third right now. Fourth will be Sarasota from lane 5. Lane 6, Potomac in 5th. And it looks like we've got GMS lane 1 in 6th.
It's interesting to see how the summer programming has differed from years past. While normally in a typical season, you would have a lot of, or I shouldn't say a lot of summer racing, but a lot more summer racing opportunities with Canadian Henley, potentially with the Canamex Regatta, with Club Nationals, and a couple other smaller races that are located throughout the country. But there's a couple programs that have shifted their focus to more of a development standpoint, knowing that there's not that many races and knowing that they really want to focus in on building the athlete up. CRI's U19 squad actually is just doing small boat, or not even small boat, but sculling. So they are not necessarily touching any sweep boats. The U17s from CRI are definitely still sweeping and sculling. They're doing a combination of both, but U19s headed up by Sky Elliott with Tori Hetman as an assistant for the squad, Tori serving as the novice girls coach during the year. They're really emphasizing, developing that good boat feel, so not only for the athletes that they have within their program, but any athletes that came to visit them for the summer. I know that there's a couple other programs that have done the same thing, that have shifted more to a development focus. I know that Potomac has done a really nice job in ensuring that their athletes get the full experience, not just for on-the-water training, but with their Wellness Wednesdays, bringing in specialists to talk about rigging and nutrition. And I really give a lot of credit to these programs that are looking outside of the box and looking creatively to provide the athlete with a more well-rounded experience. So kudos to Judith Vogel and Katie Ruderman down at Potomac, as well as the Boston Cruise and a few others as well. So coming into the final 500 meters in the third semifinal of the women's U19 quad, this is going to be a good one here. I don't know if I'm more excited for this or really the final tomorrow.
Yeah, that final tomorrow with the crews that are looking to qualify out of this, and the crews that have already qualified earlier on in the past two semifinals. It is going to be a very, very competitive final. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And from that overhead drone shot, when we were focused on that U.S. Rowing Canamex crew, they were actually clearing their puddles off of their stern deck, which is the mark of a very fast crew. That means that the indentation in the water when they're taking their stroke has moved off the bow seat, has gone clear of the stern deck before they go in and take their next stroke. So they've got a very, very good amount of run on that boat. They're moving that boat very well, and it's not surprising with moving that well that this boat's that far in first place.
As we follow these guys into the last 250 meters, we start to see those buoys change to red, indicating that they are in the final stretch. We do have another race that's on the course. We begin our semifinals of the men's U17 quad. They are coming by us here at the broadcast booth up at the Camden County Boathouse here in Camden, New Jersey on the Cooper River. We will pan over to those. We'll catch them probably right around the 1,000-meter mark or so, after we watch the final, crab caught by one of the women's quads, after we watch the final boat of the women's quad come through.
Yeah, it's very, very good that that Canamex crew had that much of a cushion. The three-seat catching a crab couldn't dig it out of the water. Still qualified, but it was a lot closer of a finish on that final time with the Cambridge crew charging up right on them. As we said, on race day, anything can happen, and the race is 2,000 meters long, not 1990. You got to go get that final buoy.
You got to get all the way through. As we pan over into the race that's just coming through the 1,000-meter mark, this is the men's U17 quad first semifinal. In lane 1, we have Bellin Jesuit. Lane 2, we have Oak Neck Academy. Lane 3, Maritime B. Lane 4, Row America B. Lane 5, Saratoga. And lane 6, Resilient. So a couple B entries in the favored lanes in lanes 3 and 4. 2 spots up for grabs here to enter into tomorrow's final. There are no B&C finals. So it's
Yeah.
really all or nothing here. So these athletes are really got to be ready to lay down everything on the line.
Absolutely, really aggressive progression model, which is going to result in these rowers really giving these races all they have. And you can really see Maritime B out there in front. They're going for it. They're getting challenged, though. There's a decent challenge right now between Oak Neck and Row America Rye for that second position. And those two boats fighting it out with each other, they might push themselves up onto that lead boat.
Folks, apologies. We may have some guest commentators coming in. We are starting to have geese come closer and closer to our tent, so I guess they just have a lot to say about the racing of what's going on, but apologies if that interferes with the audio.
That is true. They've been out there on the race course. They've seen the boats up close and personal. Crossing the 500-meter mark, that would be Maritime. They've got themselves about maybe 3/4 of a boat length open, but it's anyone's guess between Oak Neck and Row America Rye here for that second qualifying position. Maybe Oak Neck by a hair in that with the lane 2 bow card on, but Row America Rye, they're not going away, so we'll see which one of them is able to pull out the sprint here in the last 500 meters.
In this event, the U17 men's quad, out of the time trial, there were 30 entries. Maritime B, that you see here leading the pack, did win the time trial with 2 seconds over the rest of the field. So not a huge margin, but still, to push yourself that early on in a time trial says a lot about the crew. But here they are showing dominance yet again. They're very eager to get the opportunity to fight for a national championship here at the 2021 U.S. Rowing Summer National Regatta on the Cooper River in Camden, New Jersey.
Absolutely. We've got these red buoys now indicating the last eighth of the race, the last 250 meters. You see them shifting in Maritime, really shifting into a sprint. It looks like lane 4, Row America Rise, found their sprint too, so we'll see how that sprint connects or overlaps with Oak Neck. Oak Neck had the advantage going into the last 500 meters, and we'll see how that ends up as the camera pans around to the finish line where Maritime B is crossing the line first. There it is, Oak Neck right there. They've maintained their advantage, maybe opened up a little bit more, and they will get the second qualifying spot. So well rowed to them. Row America coming across the line just about astern off of Oak Neck.
As we see these final crews coming through the finish line here, the second semifinal is on the course, and we'll pan up to that as soon as we see all boats finish.
That's lane 5, Saratoga, and lane 1, Belen Jesuit coming through the finish there. And there's lane 6, Resilient. Taking a look up towards the start line, it looks like we're getting our next race into the stake boats. You can see from this shot, if you've not seen the start line of a 2K course before, there's a start bridge up there, and there's docks coming off of that start bridge, and what they're doing right now is trying to back the stern of their boat up right next to that. There's a person laying up there holding on now to the stern of that boat, and what that stake boat holder is going to do is they've got a radio in their ear. They're going to listen to an aligner off to the left side of the screen who's going to line up a wire with a target on the far side of the race course, and that line is going to mark the start line. So the aligner's trying to fit all 6 bow balls on that same line, so everybody gets the same 2,000 meters. There's a nice overhead shot from the drone looking at the alignment process here, all those stake boat holders there. Stake boat holders, they don't get much airtime, but they are an essential part of this regatta, and we appreciate the efforts of laying out there on a day like this where it's 90 degrees and hot and humid. So
now that's a great shot right there.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to stay with them here. You can see a couple of the blades popping in and out of the water, but as soon as they're buried, that indicates the referee is calling alignment. And very quickly, the rowers will hear the words "attention, go," and then you'll see all of them start to move off the block. But you can tell that the wind's starting to push the bows around a little bit. You see the athlete sitting in the bow furthest away from the dock, usually moves it around. There they go.
Really incredible sight. If you've not been at the start line before for a race, I would highly recommend doing that at some point.
As you come off the blocks, what crews want to do, they're not going to jump straight into full slide strokes. They're not going to jump into complete strokes because they are coming from a dead stop. So it's very common for athletes to do some sort of a combination of whether it's half strokes or 3/4 strokes or no layback, just to get the boat up and moving. It's kind of like if you were to squat down and lift up a really, really heavy bar with a lot of weight on it and you're not prepared. You want to make sure that things are warmed up before you even try and pick that up.
Absolutely. You got to build your boat speed. You don't go from 0 to 100. You got to hit every mile an hour between there when you're accelerating a car. Same concept here in the quads. And from this overhead shot, you can see there's a couple of crews out there that are having a little bit of trouble with their steering, getting blown around a little bit. Lane 6 and lane 3 having a little bit of trouble with their steering. That would be the bow person there. May or may not have a rudder attached to the toe of their shoe. So they may be trying to steer a little bit with the rudder. They may be trying to steer a little bit with the pressure. But we have a very tight race for first place. It looks like we've got 3 boats that are all fighting for 2 qualifying spots. If this pack holds together, it's going to be a very close, very intense finish in the second semifinal. We've just crossed the 500-meter mark. We'll switch camera around to the top of the Camden County Boathouse and see what we've got here. Those 3 boats are hanging together real quick. We've got lane 1 in Gordon, lane 2 Miami. They're one of those boats in the lead pack. Lane 3 is Port. Lane 4 is Maritime. So Miami, Port, Maritime in that lead pack right now. Potomac, lane 5, Conshohocken out in lane 6. This is a very, very tight race. The boat's right now approaching the broadcast booth out here, right around 800 meters or so into the race, and it is very tight still between those 3 boats. It looks like lanes 3 and 4, Port and Maritime respectively, have pushed out just slightly ahead of Miami in lane 2. Now Port establishing about a seat or 2 advantage over Maritime, but still very tightly contested race. And when they head into the second 1,000 meters, we'll see what happens with the rest of these. This is a very, very tightly contested race. Again, only 2 spots, so these athletes know that they're going to be putting everything they have into that race to make sure that they are a boat fighting for a national championship tomorrow. As the boats came by, so you could hear some of the bow seats shouting instructions to their crews. Because there are no coxswains, there's not really a lot of noise coming out of there. It's very, very short, very succinct, maybe 1 or 2 syllable words to try and communicate with the rest of the crew. So it's a little bit different than sweep rowing, where you've got those coxswains there trying to communicate with you. It's a very, very different kind of communication, very different kind of motivation being out here in these coxless boats. boats looking very smooth, very efficient as we approach the 500-meter mark. You see the clock about 4 minutes and 30 seconds, so these crews are moving pretty quick. Especially with a little bit of a tailwind, a little bit of a crosswind, it's going to help them down the course a little bit faster. But these are very well-rowed boats. It looks smooth and it looks easy right now, and that's the hallmark of a very well-done boat. Real big credit to the crews and their coaches, especially at the U17 level. That means these kids are 15 and 16 years old out here taking strokes, and to be looking that disciplined, looking that solid and composed coming in. That's really, really good for them and their programs.
Okay. I'm going to go to David. Going to David now. Dean, there's a race on the course.
All right, and this is our finish line camera. This is what the race looks like from the grandstand approaching there. So I'm sure there's crowds on the shore. A beautiful, beautiful day here in Camden, New Jersey, cheering these last few races on. It's Port out front. It looks like Maritime was next. We'll see how things come out. They're in the last 250 meters now. The buoy's changing colors to red, indicating they're in the last eighth of the race course, the last 250 meters, letting the rowers know that if you're holding on to something, now's the time to let it go and get it all out there. Put it into the water, get it on the race course, leave nothing behind. Port doing a very good job, seeing a little bit of a challenge coming from that Maritime crew in lane 4, responding well to it, not panicking. And here comes Maritime, though. They have really increased the rate. They really want that first place, and now Port responding again to the challenge. That is a very tight race, very strong challenge from Maritime. It looks like Port is going to secure their first place, but wow, that was a really good challenge from Port, or from Maritime. And here comes lane 2, Miami. Wow, what a sprint. Wow, good for them. That was an incredible sprint, just taking Maritime maybe by a seat or two. That has to be maybe 2/300ths of a second difference at the finish line. Rounding out the field, I've got lane 5, Potomac, coming through. We'll check the finish times as they pop up on our screen here. That was probably a photo finish. While we wait for that, I've got semifinal 3, our final race out on the race course right now. That is lane 1, CRI, lane 2, Orion, lane 3, Row America Rye, lane 4, Conshohocken B, lane 5, White Marsh, and lane 6, Greenwich. And passing right in front of me, it is a 3-boat pack. Lanes 3, 4, and 5 appear to be the ones out in front. Sorry, that is lanes 2, 3, and 4, Orion, Row America Rye, and Conshohocken B.
So great overhead drone footage here. You see the 3 crews out in front. There are only 2 spots up for grabs, so it'll be a pretty good fight coming into the last half of the race here.
That'll be Row America Rye out front in that semifinal. This is a really strong race, though, between Orion and Conshohocken for that second and final qualifying position. Quick update from the last race. It was Miami over Maritime at 639.9 to 641.1. So very, very strong challenge come from behind from Miami there. Really solid sprint.
So looking at here, again, great drone footage. Thank you, U.S. Rowing, and everybody else who made this possible. I know that we've got a couple different cameras that are able to capture everything on the race course. Being able to look at Row America Rye out in front here, just really laying it on nice and thick, cruising right along, asserting themselves as the dominant force in this final semi, in this final race of day 2 here at the 2021 Summer Nationals in Camden, New Jersey. Right now it looks like Orion tails Conshohocken only by about a deck. I think that there's still a lot of race that can be had. They're entering what looks like the last 500 meters here. But I think it's going to be hard for any of these crews to try and catch Row America Rye as they really just stride straight into the finish.
Yeah, that Row America Rye boat is adding more distance now between the crews. It looks like lane 2 Orion's had to make a course correction. That's cost them a bit of distance on Conshohocken. Conshohocken trying to open it up now to a full boat length lead. And here comes Orion trying to make up for that course correction. Are they going to have enough race course to do it? I don't know.
Like anything else, we'll just have to wait and see. But final race of the day. If you're just tuning in for this last race, there's 2 spots up for grabs in the final semifinal 3 of the U17 men's quad, and they're approaching the last 250 meters. It looks like the buoys have changed.
Oh
There's
no,
the
it looks like we've got a crab. It looks like we've got a crab or an oarlock popped out, possibly on that Orion crew. That's going to end their day. Really disappointing for them. They were absolutely in contention, but that's going to give
Conshohocken the advantage.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's not really any remedy outside of the first 100 meters to popping an oarlock or having equipment breakage. That's considered just bad luck and part of racing. Just like if somebody blows an engine or a tire in an auto race, it's an unfortunate part of the sport.
So coming into the finish here, you do see Row America Rye working their way straight into the final. They've got to be pretty stoked for tomorrow, followed by Conshohocken B with a pretty solid lead over the rest of the field. Again, we saw Orion sit right with Conshohocken for the majority of the race. Here we are with CRI in lane 1 coming in 3rd.
Yeah, that's absolute disaster and tragedy for Orion. To really feel for those kids. It's White Marsh coming across there from lane 5.
There's Orion here.
And the boat in lane 6, Greenwich, will close out this day of racing. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the 2021 U.S. Rowing Summer Nationals. I'm Stephen Eckstein, and I'm sitting here alongside Katie Lane. We thank you for tuning into this broadcast. It's been a blast.
It's been a pleasure. We're so glad that Mother Nature really held off. And again, here's your PSA to continue to drink water leading into the rest of racing tomorrow, especially because they're big races, really racing for the right bragging rights for the next year, and also to make sure you tie down your equipment before you leave the course tonight. But just as Stephen said, we really enjoyed being with you today, and we hope that you tune in tomorrow as we crown national champions.
Absolutely. It'll blast. We'll see you tomorrow.
Take care.